Welcome back to our World Chess Championship Made Simple series, and today we get to see Game 9 between Jan Nepomniachtchi playing White and Magnus Carlsen. Now, Jan is 2 points behind, which is quite a lot for these types of events, because he only has 3 whites left, including the game I'm about to show you. And for that level of chess players, the colors actually matter. So if they're white, they have to try to play for a win if they're behind, because trying to play for a win with black, as we saw in game 8, was not fun at all. So in this game, Young goes for an English opening with c4. Rather than try to test the Roy Lopez again, he tries to go for the English, and Magnus says, okay, let's just keep it solid. No, keep it simple, keep it solid. And the whole idea is black is going for a Queen's Gambit type of setup with the pawn on d5. And White says, okay, let me get my bishop to say hi to all those pawns and give you some space. Would you like to take that guy? Here, you can have my pawn. But if you do, I'll take it back one way or another. Maybe my queen will get it, maybe my knight will get it, and later my bishop will fire like the dragon he really is. So for that reason, Black says, no, I want more space, give me more space. The problem with the English is that all these squares here are under Black's control. If White ignores the center, the pawns can just come down and say, hello, bishop, we're going to close you in. So that's why Jan has to fight against these pawns. He can't just let them stay there. And later on, he will get rid of them. Okay. Now, first of all, he needs to develop, make sure he's castled, follow the opening rules. He gets his knight out, castles, and instead of playing c5, which may seem logical here, just taking the center, Carlsen says, whoa, how about I get my knight here? And one day, the other knight may need that square. I'll make sure you can never get rid of me, kick me out of here, and that square looks juicy, either for the bishop or the knight. Either way, the pawn is safe, I got it covered, don't worry, and it's very hard for you to attack anything, especially since this pawn has nothing to fear anymore. All right, and Jan just says, okay, it's okay. Later on, I'll find a way to play b4, whether it's knight a3, knight c2, and rook b1, maybe some bishop d2 will come in, and then b4, or maybe I'll just play knight d2 and play with the knight there. Okay, either way, b4 is part of this plan, and at some point, I don't really like your pawn, so maybe we'll trade it off. Okay, Carlsen says, when you trade it off, I'll be waiting. My bishop is waiting for you to trade me off so I can have this glorious outpost on d4. Let's say you trade, I take, you trade, I take, and then the bishop is glorious, and there's a backwards pawn. Okay, that's one idea. Now, in the actual game, Jan makes sure that the pieces are out first, gets a nice little pawn chain here, and says, I'll attack on the queen side. We develop, take out some pieces, and the knight says, can I bother your bishop? Because it's rare that the bishop is looking at pawns like that. And if I could just bother him, maybe I can even trap him. For example, pawn c5, he's almost trapped. Okay, he has to go to a5, I get the bishop pair, I'm very, very happy with your bishop. If he goes away, I can always kick him. If he goes to d6, gobble, gobble the pawn on d4. Okay, and it's not so easy to protect everything here. Now, in the actual game, Carlsen says, okay, you kick me, I'm ready. I'm not scared. Okay, and that's exactly what happens. Instead of going to a7, Magnus says, wait a second, even e7 is good because your knight is about to get kicked out of here. And then, how are you going to play b4 if I got the whole army, all the king's horses and all the king's men looking at b4? How will you ever play b4? Okay, and Jan says, well, maybe I'll get rid of your center. You know, maybe now that your bishop can't help, I'll get rid of your center because the pawn is all alone. If you play something like e5, which did not happen, you're trying to help your bishop, but wait a second. Maybe just take, and rook e1 would be logical. And then this guy is a little lonely. Okay, another problem is bishop f4. One day that guy may be a problem. Okay, and even if you kick me away, like, yes, you can't kick me, but when the knight comes back, the bishop is already happy, the bishop is out, this guy is lonely, and I think White is happy with the position after 95. Okay, I think that's what Jan was going for here. Instead, Black just took instead of trying to keep the pawn there, they say, you want the center, you can have the center. Okay, and white took back with the bishop. Jan said, let me get the pieces firing. If he takes with the pawn, he could try to do that. But, sometimes these are called hanging pawns. Sometimes they can be weak after like e5. Now, if you can get them going, they can also be good. Maybe they can be scary. But I think black will kick you away first. And then this guy has no square to go to because knight d2 is not exactly happy land. Okay, this is not Disney World for white. And if you play knight d4, it's okay, but not exactly what he wanted. After something like even c5, this guy becomes a backwards pawn. Okay, at some point e5 or c5, and the knight will have to go away. That guy's a backwards pawn. So white didn't like the pawn structure. That's why he took back with the bishop, and boom. Can I have your bishop there, please? May I have the dark squares at the whole complex? And white says, no, you may not. How about we trade your good bishop? And then you're stuck with the sleeper on c8. Okay, and black says, okay, sure, let's trade. You want to trade? Let's trade. Anytime, feel free to trade. And white says, no, you have to trade. Trade on my terms. And both sides are trying to trade on their own terms. Okay, if black takes, then white can take with the knight. And if white takes, then black gets the queen out of the way, making way for the rook. So it's a standoff between the bishops. Okay, and black says, go away, I don't like you, knight. When you go away, I'll double up your pawns and gobble them one by one. And Jan says, okay, fine, you got it, you win, you get the trade on your terms. After the trade, we're stuck with two knights and a bishop at home. This guy has a hard time coming out because if you ever play here, I can always lock you in and he's not much better, plus we kick away the knight. If you ever play b6, ooh, it's a little scary. I'm looking at this diagonal thinking, uh-oh, there are gonna be tactics here. Okay, for that reason, he doesn't want to push out any pawn yet. He wants to keep it solid, keep it simple, just make sure there are no targets in his camp. Okay, and get the bishop out slowly but surely. All right, for that reason, a3 is a critical moment. At this point, Jan has a choice to make. He can either take or push. Okay, if he pushes b3, the problem is there's an outpost. This is what Magnus is going for. After, let's say knight comes over here, maybe the rook goes away and b6, no more tactics. This knight is great. The bishop will come to b7. And after the bishop's trade, black solved all their problems. Every piece has a job, right? The rook will come here. This guy is supporting a3, and the knight is making the a pawn awkward, uncomfortable. The rook wants to go, it's like, and it's not feeling great because anytime he goes, the knight wins a queen for black. The a3 pawn will promote if you let it. Okay, for that reason, the rook will hate this, and Jan didn't play it for that reason. A better move that the computer actually likes is b4. It's an interesting pawn sack. We give up the pawn, we gambit it, so that when they take, we say, ooh, two things on one pile. You have to run away, thank you. Let me just collect it and collect the light squares for my bishop. After you take, ooh, bishop pair is great, 7th rank is great, white is very happy here. Okay, even after, let's say, rook b8, knight c5 should be okay, and it's not too scary for white, plus this pawn is lonely, and white has more space. Okay, for that reason, in the actual game, he did not play b4, but took instead. I think if he played before, he'd have way better chances of winning this game. For example, knight here, rook b1, knight takes a2 is another trick I wanted to show, right? Because the knight got what he wanted, but doesn't come out alive. The knight gets trapped. Anytime he crosses the equator, he needs to have a way back. In this case, he does not have a way back. All right. For that reason, he should have played before, but instead he took. He thinks the file will open up and the rook will get to do something. The only problem is black gets to pressure the pawn. So already he's saying, ooh, knight takes, queen takes, demolition of defender. I'll get rid of your center. And white said, no, you won't. It's my center. Stay away from it. But eventually, black will come for this pawn, and that guy is a target. The center is starting to go from space advantage and strong, scary pawns that can become rolling stones. They're starting to become hanging pawns. They're starting to become targets. First, Carlsen makes sure that nothing comes to d5. Yeah, he blockades the pawns. If this guy comes here, the knight will come here. Okay, that's great for black, a full blockade. But if you push the other one, my knight is waiting. Okay, for that reason, you can't push them, so they become weak. Okay, white says, maybe I can push him now. No, you cannot. The queen is gone, no more pin. Okay, and white says, maybe I can push him with the rook here and maybe some back rank tricks. What back rank tricks? I don't see any. Carlsen sees this coming a mile ahead. He's like, oh, you want the checkmate on e8, don't you? No, not gonna happen. Okay, stops back rank, and white says, maybe one day I can, try some tricks, and also I don't have back rank to worry about. Maybe I get some space. That's a hard move to understand, but it is getting space, and it's healthy for the king. Bishop d7. The bishop finally gets to come out. He doesn't have to worry about d5 no more. Okay, d5 is no longer a move. And if you try rook, let's say d1, the problem is a2 is an issue. Okay, you don't have space for d5. You wish you had the time and the ability, but there is no way. So for that reason, he tries another idea. He says, how about I get your bishop pair? Or maybe I can take and then knight c5. Or maybe I'll take here and double your pawns. Okay. And if you take me, where does your knight go? That's awkward. b7 is dropping. The knight is dropping. Something's definitely dropping. All right. In the game, he just got ready. Magnus is super solid. He says, no targets, no weaknesses. My bishop is working from home today. He's on lockdown, and the rooks are finally connected. The bishop can stay at home as long as he doesn't block anyone else. So now the rooks are happy, everyone's happy, black is totally fine here. All right, very solid. In the actual game, he says, let me keep an eye on this pawn since you are firing at it. White defends it, and queen d4, rook b1. Here's the critical point of the game. All right, after all those tricks, we get to an endgame. Okay, black finally takes, we go to a endgame or queenless middle game. And the knight looks weird, but it's very hard to trap because he always has h6 and f5. If you ever try to kick him, your bishop will regret it. If you take, well, that's what happened in the game, where you are up a pawn, but the pawns are sad. Okay, the pawns are very lonely and sad. The knight is very active. The rooks are too active. Your rook, not so much. He cannot compare. Okay. If you try to kick away the knight, that's not going to help either because knight f5 is very annoying to these pawns and your bishop will hate it. Okay. After, let's say, f4, probably just knight f5. And then he's rock solid there. Okay. I would say black is totally fine here, if not better. Okay, because rook d3 and you have too many targets. Target, target, target. Okay. For that reason, in the actual game, he goes for bishop takes, doubles the pawn, and tries to run away with it. The rook says, how's your pawn feeling today? And here is the ultimate blunder. When you make mistakes in chess, you tend to make more right after. Okay, it's a psychological thing. Your brain says, oh no, I messed up in the last game. And so now Ian goes for more mistakes because he made some mistakes last game. Here come more blunders. And after the awful move b5 in the previous games, we have this c5, which makes me cry because it's so sad. Ian was trying so hard, prepared so well, and then gives up a bishop for no reason. He gets his bishop trapped on b7. And with that go the last hopes he had really of winning this match. Because after c6, he is now down 3 games, not just 2. The bishop is trapped and the game is effectively over. The white bishop cannot come out. No one can help him. Okay, not the knight, not the rooks, too many black rooks. are in his area. I'm really not sure what he's thinking playing c5. Of course, in a perfect world, he wants to put the pawn on c6. But it's just a one move answer for black that kills the game for white. Now Jan has no way out from b7. The rook is coming to b8, and he can resign. It's as simple as that. Okay, this is shocking. A few grandmasters said they've never seen anything like it in World Championship history. Okay, sometimes we make mistakes, but not one move blunders. That's just very serious for white. Okay, after f3, he tries some tricks. He says maybe you could trade off rooks, and maybe after you play rook b8, I can get my bishop out. No, not today, says Carlsen, trapping the bishop. And even after you try to help it, the last rook comes in with full effect. When it rains, it pours. Okay, even as the a pawn goes up the board, even as we try every trick possible, he's saying maybe I can get a pawn here and protect my rook. No, that rook is also gone. The knight tries to keep the bishop out of the game, tries to say, ooh, I have an a pawn. But for a grandmaster, this is just child's play. Up an extra knight, the knight just comes in. The rook will block the pawn. The knight will gobble everything else, and the game is over. Okay, he resigned at this point. The bishop will come in very soon. Make sure the pawn is never scary again. Eventually, the knight will come and make his way to c8, and the rook will gobble the last chance white has. Okay, so a very sad example of blundering at the top level, which shows that we are all mortal, okay, including Jan Nepomniachtchi. And it'll be interesting to see if he can recover and win at least one game in the remaining opportunities that he will have. Next game, he will be black again, so he'll have to try and survive with black and then try to win with his two remaining whites. Okay, so thanks for watching and looking forward to seeing the last games. Bye-bye.